Hi, in today's episode, we have Aditi. Aditi is from a musical womb, as she says. Her mother is an accomplished Rabindra Sangeet singer of Kolkata, which is Tagore's songs. Aditi has grown up in a very musical environment. She has been performing on stage from the tender age of 5. So most of her musical learning has been organic in nature, and she's had some formal training in Hindustani classical music, and she dabbles in all genres of music. But what got me totally knotted up is the fact that Aditi has been a speaker in India's first emotional intelligence online seminar, which I think I completely relate to, along with the musical part of the development of emotional intelligence. So we're going to talk to Aditi a little more about that. She's done many interviews on Instagram for inspiring women. She's conducted online curtain raiser for Wandering Minds Women's Day. She's done live music for Gurgaon Mom, Kolapi. So she was the international guest for the Womaniya Award for 2021. And she's been on multiple platforms doing live music competitions and live music shows in which she's been a judge. What also is very interesting is that she's done this migrant workers Facebook page in Singapore. This has been the biggest virtual congregation of migrant workers in Singapore, which is extremely interesting for this podcast. And she's been on a forum and discussion on International Mother's Language Day with delegates from various countries. Again, we both relate to each other there. I think the first word of love we learn from our mother, and that's how it's called the mother tongue. She's worked very closely also beyond music for corporates like Punch Lloyd, Apollo Tyres, IHD Hotels, and she's done her master's in English and been in communication PR. Now, Aditi is in Singapore, and she's a mother of a child, and her interests are painting, reading, and music. But today's podcast, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence in music. There's a research that shows that music can be a stimulus for emotional intelligence. And I'm going to get Aditi's take on it. It's the ability to recognize and interpret other people's emotion. It's very crucial for forming and maintaining relationships and others with everyone, including your family members, friends, colleagues, and professional acquaintances. As they say, music stimulates the development of emotional intelligence because it plays a role in the maturation process of the right hemisphere of the brain. Now, on the technical part, music may also, they say, affect the left hemisphere because of the complex ways in both these hemispheres in our brains are connected. So, of course, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but I just know that listening to music is a form of very, very effective communication between two people, even when you both are not talking. So tell me a little bit, Aditi, about your life. And, what got me really interested is this, that, I do recognize that as children, when we are growing up in the environment around us, consciously, yet subconsciously, we do pick on to the things that our parents do around us. So obviously, naturally, music must have been the natural, thing for you, as it would be, water for a duck. But you talk about emotional intelligence in music. Tell me a little bit about the journey, and we're going to talk also about how you think emotional intelligence plays out in a human being with music.
Thank you so much, Mohua. It is so wonderful to be here on your podcast, and you have given me such a glowing introduction. Now I don't even know how to honor that. But yeah, so my musical journey, you said that was your first point. So that was pretty organic for me because, as you have already said, I was born to a musical mother. So when I was growing up, there were rehearsals and jams and concerts, which were like a regular everyday part of my life. So the first initial training for me wasn't really sitting in front of Ma and listening to her and learning formally, but she was conducting so many classes and there was so much happening all around that I picked up music pretty much on the go. It had become like second nature to me. My mom says that I started singing when I started talking. So that's one. And then, of course, as days progressed, Ma tried to get me enrolled into lots of different kinds of courses of music, but I was a rebellious child. However, music kept on growing with me as I kept on growing. And then at one point, I took formal training in Hindustani classical music for a while. That's about it. I had a band, so I used to sing commercially and professionally. I have released lots of music videos. I have sung originals for some composers who contacted me to sing their original songs. So yes, music has been very exciting, is very exciting, and I really, really hope and pray it's going to be exciting for me till my last breath. Coming to the emotional intelligence, that was a very, very interesting thing that happened in my life. There is a Emotional Intelligence Institute which wanted to do a virtual conference on emotional intelligence. Initially, their idea was to have a physical, proper conference seminar with workshops. However, because of COVID, that had to be scrapped. So they moved the whole thing on the virtual platform, and they got in touch with me and they wanted me to be one of their speakers. And my session was on emotional intelligence through live music. So basically, the things that you said, how intelligence or emotional growth is actually affected by music, is something that everyone is aware of. However, they wanted their audience, and they had a very widespread audience and a very international audience. They wanted their audience to actually experience that while I was talking. So that's why they roped me in, because I am a performer and a singer as well. And how we went about it is, I had actually chosen all the basic emotions. So there is happiness, there is a sorrow, there is anger, there is a fear. These are the four major emotions. And I had picked up a few minor ones as well. And while I was talking to them about these emotions, I was actually singing them snippets of songs. So how I went about it is, instead of me telling them what emotion the audience is supposed to feel, I would say, for example, pick up the song Eye of the Tiger, if you have heard that song. And I would sing a little bit of that song. Everyone has heard it. It's very popular. And then when I asked the audience, what did you feel? There were majority of people who told me we felt anxious. We felt a sort of sense of restlessness, not a very calm or peaceful feeling, agitation in the head. So that is a fight or flight response. And that's what happens to your body or your mind. Of course, your mind triggers your body. It is your emotional intelligence which gives a trigger to the rest of you. And that can be stimulated by music. So that's one side of emotional intelligence and music connectivity. Sometimes that agitated state of mind can also be calmed down by music. That also we experienced while we were doing the workshop. So yes, it was a very, very interesting journey with them.
Now that you are in Singapore, and obviously you're cut off from Kolkata, which is your hometown. And, for me also, I've moved cities and, having left a huge chunk of my culture. When you're young, you probably don't realize how it becomes such a growing part of your growth. And of course, you imbibe a lot of cultures as you're growing along, but something that you learn at home, that we spoke about, the mother tongue and the language. So whenever I need calm, I listen to Tagore music because that's what my mother used to listen to. So tell me a little bit, about your journey that you remember as a child, something that you have not been able to forget. So I'll just share with you before you begin that I still remember, I was growing up in Shillong and there used to be the hills and, it used to rain incessantly. And it wasn't like the way it is now that, you fix up and you go out and you meet friends. My father had a traveling job and Ma used to be at home. And I still remember that she used to sit by the window and she used to listen to this song called Shokhi Bhabona Kahare Bole. And that song is my go-to song forever. Every time I feel restless, every time I feel pain, every time I also enjoy melancholy. I have to admit that. There are times when I like to be in that state, and I do listen to that song. So in the same way, I'm sure there would be some songs that would have really left an indelible mark in your heart, So is there some memory that you've attached to certain songs in your life?
Of course. And when it comes to Tagore, okay, before I answer your question, I'm going to sing 2 lines of your favorite song for you.
Thank you.
Bhabona kahare bole, shokhi jato na kahare bole, তোমরা যে বলো দিবস রজনী ভালোবাসা ভালোবাসা সখী ভালোবাসা কারে কয় সে কি বলি যাতনাময়.
My God, that got me knotted up because that song is so deep with its meaning.
Yes,
I
I
mean, I
know.
can go
I
on
know.
and on talking about Tagore and his repertoire, about every emotion that he's like, touched. And this is such a beautiful song. So tell me a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, for us Bengalis, one of the things that I consider very fortunate in being born a Bengali is you can understand Bengali without any translation, without the language having undergone any translation, which makes you be able to enjoy Tagore's creations without those undergoing any sort of modification, which I think is the greatest blessing of being born a Bengali. Second, because I am born to a Rabindra Sangeet singer, I have heard so many songs that what leaves me absolutely stunned is that this poet, Rabindranath Tagore, has written songs that match every single emotion. I mean, how could somebody have done that? I have made a new friend recently. His name is Dr. Rao. I have met him on Clubhouse. He's become my friend. He's much, much older than me. He always says that unless and until you have actually touched divinity, you cannot write like that. So for Tagore, I definitely and 101% believe that he had a vision of God, and that's why he could write the way he did. Coming to one specific memory, I remember my mom used to perform for a lot of concerts, a lot of programs. These were usually in Rabindra Sadon, Kala Mandir, big places. One time there was a homely get together of sorts, which was happening in somebody's terrace. And it was a moonlit night, and his terrace had a lot of jasmine creepers everywhere. So, and those were full of the jasmine flowers. So there were stars in the night sky, and it almost seemed like there were stars in the terrace as well, because you could see all those, the jasmine plant has very dark leaves. The leaves are so dark that in the night, they almost look black. And then there were these bright, beautiful, small flowers, which were staring at you from everywhere, all across the terrace. And there was the smell, the fragrance of jasmine. And yes, it is such an evocative memory. And my mother was singing Aji Jyotsna Rate Shobai Geche Bone, which basically means on this moonlit night, everyone has gone to the forest to enjoy the spring. I won't. I shall stay back at home because I'm waiting to hear your footsteps. So that memory and that moment has gotten imprinted in my head. One of my favorite memories of listening to a Rabindra Sangeet. I have 1001 because she's a Rabindra Sangeet singer. So
that must be quite a memory for you. So tell me a little bit about, the kind of songs that you've done, the live performances that you've done, and your journey into Hindi music and popular Bollywood music. What's your take on today's music? Because I do see, of course, I love the fusion because it makes it very accessible for people, for youngsters to enjoy Indian classical music, because I think there's an end of an era of every home where kids learn some sort of classical music. I think it's really in the decline now, especially in India. We are a very, very quick generation that we are creating now. And, they don't have that sort of, the majority of people don't have that sort of perseverance to pursue something like Indian classical music or the classical arts, because it means so much of riyaz. It means not getting, I still remember I used to learn the sitar, and I think one rag I almost learned for over 8 months or so. And my guru would constantly make me do riyaz on just the saregama that I had to learn to play it 100 times without a single faltering moment while your hands were moving on the strings, So Indian classical music now is being fused with a whole lot of other, electronic music. And that's also beautiful. What Coke Studio does, was what Nescafe, I think basement Nescafe does, and a whole lot of other people do, a whole lot of other, they just organize the music in a way where it's more palatable for people. What is your take on classical music, and this whole change? And of course, you have Honey Singh, whose lyrics, I mean, less said the better. But there is, so there, of course, no music is bad, no art is bad ever. But what is your take on today's music industry?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, I want you to just listen to this. सावन बीतो जाए पिहरवा, मन मेरा घबराए, मन मेरा घबराए, ऐसो गए परदेस पिया तुम, चैन हमें नहीं आए, मोरा सैया मुझसे बोले ना. Now, this piece is actually also named Khamaj. So therefore, it is based on the rag, and it is completely, it's the way the tune flows, the notes that it touches are very, very, very classical. But if you see the music that they have used for this particular piece, it's completely Western. So therefore, what you said is correct, that the blending, what should I say, the homogeneous mixture of classical with Western is what is making it palatable to the wider audience. And takers, people who actually devote years to developing their prowess in classical music, maybe, I don't know if the number is going down, Mohua, honestly, because I have seen a lot of youngsters, people who are even younger than us, actually taking up classical and devoting themselves.
I'm so happy to hear that.
No, so what I'll tell you, there is a difference. Earlier on, it used to be like a machine gun fire. Okay, everyone you touch had some training in classical. They were at least doing the sargam, they were at least doing the basics, they were doing paltas, alankars, and all that. Now it's not like that. Now it is more like sniper bullets. You pick up one person, maybe amidst 3,000, but that person has not only explored classical, that person has taken it to heights which are unimaginable. So therefore, maybe less number of people are indulging in it in this particular genre of music, but those who are really going deep. So there is development, it is selective, but the development is phenomenal, and that gives birth to someone like A.R. Rahman.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So that's my take on what is happening with classical music.
I don't know if all schools actually, I still remember the smallest of the schools actually in India in the past always used to have the Saregama Padhanisa. I think every person knew. But I don't know if that is part of and I'm not talking about the elite schools here or I'm talking about just a regular school. Yesterday I was talking to someone, they don't even have a playground any longer. And every day when I come into my studio, I pass by this little school for children. And there is no space whatsoever because, of course, education is becoming such a huge business and music is an integral part of the education and the development of a child. And, I don't know because I don't think music needs to have a class. Music is for everyone. Music should be accessible, should be a part of the curriculum for everyone. And, so going back to... when you said that, of course we have A.R. Rahman. I enjoy Coke Studio really a lot because my favorite is Tina Sani. And I keep listening to her song constantly that I keep going back to. And then there's Faiz Ahmed Faiz. All the songs have become, they because of the mixture, like you said, of electronic and other instruments put together, it becomes like a completely different presentation of sorts, which gets which is very popular, and it's fantastic because nobody's being cut off today any longer from all of that. But my whole worry is this, that, pure classical music, I just hope it doesn't die. I'm not saying that I'm not one of them. I'm very much a part of the digital media. And right now we're talking to each other, we're connected. But I just wish that a little part of every home they would dedicate to the classical form, because I think it's almost like meditation. So I still remember my mother used to call it, shadhana in Bengali, which is, of course, is meditation, when you're learning Indian classical music or you're sitting down to read, she always called it shadhana, which you will relate to that word. So shadhana is not something which is meditation. It's not something that I see every child today learning. And I think going forward, because, the number of kids you meet today who've got emotional issues, I'm sure it was that time also, but it didn't get addressed. But the whole isolation that I see among children today, maybe if there are more schools and classes all around, with the classic musicians teaching and imparting that knowledge, maybe, I think it would be really, really ideal. So tell me a little bit about Singapore. Do you see these clusters of, of kids, Indian kids who are holding on probably to their roots, and there are classes that happen? Because in Bangalore, in the vicinity, I haven't I live in Koramangala, which is, of course, again, a very, very developed part. Unless you go into, the traditional areas of Bangalore, there you would find a lot of people doing Carnatic music, But in Kolkata also, I'm going all over the place and I'm talking to you, Aditi, because when you pass through a little lane in Kolkata, you will hear the strains of music coming out from a little window. And that's my memory. Or you will have somebody playing the tabla somewhere, somebody practicing on, some sort of instrument. Are you teaching kids? And do you see there are groups who are trying to do this in Singapore?
So answering the question for Singapore, there are too many institutes in Singapore that actually train children in languages. So there are many institutes that work on Hindi. There are some that work on Bangla, and there are very, very good schools for art and music. There is one called CIFAS. There is another one which I think is called I'm not remembering the name, but there are at least three, four schools that I am aware of myself, and there are 3-4 schools that I have visited myself. So I know there are extremely high quality schools for teaching the traditional arts, the dances, the musics which come from India, which is rag based, which is classical. Now, coming to your fundamental question of you are afraid that the Hindustani classical or Carnatic classical might just fade away. Mohua, everything is not for everyone. That's what I feel. Hindustani classical, pure classical, is so heavy in its format that it's not for mass consumption. But those who consume it, they can consume much more quantities of it than I and you would be able to consume another form of music. So what I'm trying to say is, if a person who is interested in Hindustani classical starts listening to, say, Rag Bhairav in the morning, it is absolutely possible that he or she will keep listening, or for a singer, keep singing it till the time it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because after that you can't sing that rag anymore. Or for example, Darbari, which is a rag that you sing in the night. You start listening to it at 9:30 in the night, and you will probably listen to it at 6 o'clock in the morning. But if you were listening to the Bollywood mainstream melodies, how long will you listen to it? You will listen for 2 hours, you will listen for 3 hours, and that's it. And then you will switch to doing something else. So classical music is not for mass consumption, but there are takers for it. Maybe the number of takers is becoming smaller, but I don't think there is any fear of it getting obliterated altogether. Secondly, I also want to add, even to sing a mainstream Bollywood song, you need a foundation, and nothing better than classical music. Yeah, so you will see even all the mainstream singers like your Arijit, your Shreya Ghoshal, they all are trained in classical music, and that is why they sing the way they do.
Absolutely. I do agree with you that classical music is the foundation for, any sort of thing that you want to further on, go ahead and start practicing. So, like you said, that you're in a little bit of a hurry today, Aditi, and I will not let you go without singing one song for all our listeners today. So I want you to sing me one of your favorite songs. It could be Hindi,
one
it could be Bangla,
songs. Okay.
Or anything, Of course, now it's the monsoons in in India. And so
I will sing a monsoon song then. I'll sing a Bangla song, okay, Mohua, because both of us are Bengalis, and I want to sing a Bangla song. Yeah?
Please.
কিছু কিছু কথা বসে আছে ভিজে, মেঘে মেঘে কথা হয় নিজে নিজে, ঝরে যাওয়া পাতা জুড়ে বসে ডালে, চারা গাছগুলো কত কি যে বলে, আকাশ যখন গাইবে বলে, আকাশ যখন গাইবে বলে বাদলেরই গান, বাতাস তখন বইতে গিয়েও দেখায় অভিমান, অভিমান। আকাশ যখন ফিরতি পথে মন খারাপের সুর, বাতাস তখন নীরব চিঠি পাঠায় বহুদূর, বহুদূর। I hope you have heard this song before. Have you?
My God, I am transported, Aditi. Totally transported, though.
Thank you so much.
This is one of my
favorite songs.
It is one of my favorite songs too. Thank you so much for being on today's podcast. And I am so grateful to have you talk to me all the way from Singapore. And I'm really hoping that one Durga Puja, once COVID is over and things are all back to normal, you are in Bangalore or I am in Singapore and we both are together talking to each other, sharing anecdotes about our lives, because I'm sure there is so much in common, that we have.
Absolutely. You're such a warm and welcoming and wonderful person. It was just so fantastic talking to you.
So are
and
you.
Singing for you. If you have any favorite songs, you can just WhatsApp me. I will sing anytime for you, Mama.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so very much. You sang both my favorite songs today. Oh no, all the three are my favorite songs. And thank you so much and stay blessed. And you are Ma Saraswati's boon, as they say. She's the goddess of learning. And she's obviously bestowed you with the best of her, blessings on you. And may you continue to go on singing. And thanks once again.
Thank you, my dear friend. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Have a wonderful day.
To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services. Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course, all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are Womaniya Award's podcast, where Hatke is hot.